Hello, I'm Linda Ward, and today I'd like to show you how to do some basic edits on your images in Pixlr.com. When you get to Pixlr, you'll come to this screen, and we'll scroll down here, and there's three varieties of Pixlr. This one just does little effects on your images, and this is pretty much the same thing, but we'll launch the full version of it, the editor. It's got all the tools we'll need. So let's launch that. Okay, on this screen I can either create a new image, upload an image from my computer, get an image off of a web page, bring in an image from one of our online storage areas, or use it on my mobile device. But I'll bring an image from my computer. And today I'm going to work on this image. Okay, let's take a look at this image. The colors are flat, there's not much saturation, the image is a little dark, and I think I've got too much sky here. Okay, first of all, this is our menu bar, and there's a lot of things under there. This is our properties panel, and what's there depends upon what tool you're in. Okay, this is the tool panel, and this is the navigation panel, this is the layers panel, and this is the history panel. Okay, the first thing you do when you start editing a picture is you will either crop and rotate it or rotate it. Right now I don't need to rotate it, but if you had to, you would go to image and rotate here. This is kind of limited. Either you can flip the picture over or you can rotate it one direction, sideways, or the other direction. But I don't need to rotate, but I do need to crop. So I'll get the crop tool, and I don't want to restrain my crop tool. I want it free-flowing. But you can do an aspect ratio or an output size, or actually put width and height numbers here. But I want to get rid of a lot of that sky, so I will click and drag. And of course you can bring it up and down, and you can make it smaller if you want, but I'll do it that way. Now I think I will drag this down a little. I want to keep that tree, but I want to get rid of as much sky as I want. If that's the way I like it, I will hit return or enter. Okay, the second thing we do is we do tonal corrections. And seeing this image, it's flat, and it's dark, and there's not much contrast to it. So the tones are your lightness and brightness and your contrast. Where you would go there to do that is under adjustments, brightness and contrast, levels, curves, or exposure. In this software, I don't find exposure to work that well. Curves is really good, but let me show you what I do to bump up my contrast and my brightness and darkness. I'll go to levels. If we look at this, we have this histogram. If you notice, here's the darks, here's the lights. If you notice, most of the colors are over there. That means this image is indeed a little dark. I can take this center slider over a little to lighten it up. Now you don't need to do anything with these. This has to do with setting it up for print, and we're not going to do that. We'll only work with this, the histogram. And I will go OK. So let's take a look in the history panel. There's before. And now I lightened it. Now do you notice how the colors got even duller? Don't worry, we'll fix that as we go along. The next thing I like to do with the tones is the brightness and contrast. I never do this brightness lever. I never set that. But I do bump up the contrast. Now, do you notice when I bump up the contrast? It's adding contrast, but it's also brightening up the colors. Pretty cool, huh? So I'll go OK. So right now, I think my image has correct tones and correct color, or correct contrast. The next thing you will do is the color corrections. And on there, you will also go to adjustments and you'll use hue and saturation, color balance, or color vibrance. Let me go to hue and saturation because I want to actually saturate this more. So I'll bump it up even more. This desaturates, this saturates. So I'll bump it up even more. And that looks good. I never touch this lightness lever because it's the same thing. It either lightens everything or darkens everything. There's little control. Now for art, which we'll talk about later, we can actually do this with the hues. We can change hues and make it a piece of art. But right now we're talking about color corrections. And I'll go okay. The other color correction is color balance. If I thought my picture had too much red in it, looked like that, I would use this lever and add cyan to it. Red and cyan are at opposite ends or are complementary to each other. Now, if I thought my picture was too green, I would add more red. Too green, add red. And I think mine is perfect the way it is. Now, if my picture looked too blue or too yellow, let's say my picture looked too yellow, I would add more blue to it. Yellow, blue. Those are complementary to each other. They're on the opposite ends of each other. Now, that's another way you can correct colors. I didn't do anything, so I'm going to cancel. Another thing you can do is the vibrance. The vibrance. Either you can make it more vibrant, which adds more saturation, or less vibrant, which makes it less saturated. I'll add a little more vibrance to make it even brighter yet. There you go. Okay, the next thing we would do is clean up. First we did a crop and rotate, which we didn't have to rotate. We did some tonal corrections. We did some color corrections. The next thing is to clean it up. And a main tool in this software is the clone stamp tool. Now, up here, if you can see, there's a branch there. Let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit. Okay, I'm going to hold the space bar down so I can get the hand tool and come back over here. Let's zoom it in again. Take the space bar, hand tool, bring it down. Okay, we will click the clone stamp tool. And you can change your brush size, you can make the opacity, you can sample all layers if you're working on other layers, and you align it. What I want to do is I want to clone this color of the sky over this branch. So what I have to do is I click on the sky, hold the command key on the Mac or the control key on the PC, click once, and now just start painting the sky over it. There it is. Done. Pretty good, huh? Let me take the zoom tool, hold the Option or Alt key. Doesn't work that way. Okay, let's just go back to 100 or back to 50%. Okay, let's go back to 40% to get the whole picture. There we go. There's my picture. At this point, I consider this picture done. So I would actually save an archive. So I will go File, Save, and I will name it Trees Archive. Okay, and if I'm archiving, I won't use JPEG Ping, never use this bitmap. I will archive it as a TIFF, and I'll put it down back on my computer and save it. Now, we can create some beautiful effects to this picture. Already, we looked at the hue and saturation where we changed colors. Down here, this bottom part, there's an invert. That's okay. Adjust, let's try something else. Sepia, if that's what you like. Adjust, here's an interesting one. Color lookup. This will bring up some gradients. If I choose like this gradient, it looks like that gradient looks like that just looks like that. That's kind of a gray, that's kind of blue. This is an interesting one. I like that. So I'll go okay. Pretty cool, huh? There's another place to find effects that will change this to art. So let's undo the color lookup. It's under filters. Now we can blur our images and sharpen it and take some noise out of it, which is a lot of clutter in your image. Or I can add noise to it, and I can add more to it. That's what noise is. I can also pointillize it. That's what that is, if that's what you like. I can also do a vignette, which adds a black area around there. It doesn't have to be black, though. You could also choose white vignette if you want it. So there's white around it, too, if you want it, or any color you want. Let's take a picture here. I got the eyedropper out. And when I bring it out here and do the eyedropper, I can choose that color, a color in my picture. So that's what the vignette's about, and that's kind of nice, but I'll cancel. You can also do a Glamour Glow. Let's see what that looks like. That's kind of cool if that's what you want. If you want it to look misty and mysterious, that works okay. So what I'm going to do is I'll do this one, and I'll do an art poster. No, I won't. That's ugly. I will do this one, the art poster. No, the Hope. Now that's kind of like the Hope posters that Obama had in the elections. And let's say that looks good. Now I would also go File, Save as a TIFF, and I would call it Trees Effects. And that's an archive. Now, to resize this image for the web, you would go to Image Size. Let's say my web page, I don't want this picture more than 500 pixels wide. And I will constrain the proportion, keep that checked so that the height will go the same proportion. There it is. Now to save for web, I would go File, Save. And you have two choices in this, JPEG or PNG. PNG would be used if I had transparency that I wanted to maintain, but that's not true. So I will save it as a JPEG. And we don't have as much control as we do in Photoshop, but usually a JPEG around 80 looks good. And I will go here, Trees, Web, and save it as a JPEG and go OK. And there you have it. And when you're done, X out your picture. And you don't have to save it here if you don't want. And you're done. I hope this has helped you get started using Pixlr. And I went through the steps on how to work with your images. You would first crop and rotate if you needed to, make the tonal corrections, make the color corrections, clean it up with the clone stamp tool, which is in this software, and there's other tools in Photoshop. And then you would save an archive. Then if you wanted to work effects, work them on it and save an archive of that. And then you would resize it, and then you would output it, save it in the file format you want. Well, thank you, and I hope you learned a lot.